We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Justice League vs. Godzilla vs. Kong, Issue 1. This is a 2023 miniseries from DC Comics, written by Brian Buccellato, art by Christian Deuce, colors by Luis Guerrero, Richard Starkings and Comic Crafts, Jimmy Betancourt did the letters, DC Comics editor was Ben Abernathy, Legendary Comics editor Robert Napton. I have the main cover by Drew Johnson and Romulo Fajardo Jr., and the cover's okay. It's a wraparound, so it's not actually just Godzilla and the Batwing. There's also Kong in the background. We don't see a whole lot of the monsters in this issue. So Superman's about to propose to Lois at the top of the Daily Planet when Godzilla appears, and then we jump back in time because why would we want to continue with that hook? Green Lantern and the Flash are talking, and then Supergirl shows up and there's more talking, and then we see Titano, which is DC Comics pastiche for King Kong, and they haven't used him in a while, but that's sort of more talking, a lot more talking, this time with Superman, the Flash, and Green Lantern, and then Wonder Woman shows up for some more talking. They're talking about Superman's relationship with Lois this whole time, because I need 8 pages of that, and then we jump over to the Legion of Doom, where we get some more talking. This time they're going to try and do something about the Justice League, and they fly to an old Fortress of Solitude that looks a lot like the 1978 movie Fortress of Solitude, and they zap Kellex before breaking in to cause havoc and steal stuff. Batman shows up to talk to Superman about getting married because more talking was needed. Meanwhile, a big portion of the Justice League shows up at the Fortress of Solitude to face off with the Legion. Toyman does something really stupid and screws up Luthor's plan and sends them to Skull Island. And it looks like this is an alternate Earth and not the main Earth of DC. And they come across King Kong, and Toyman gets an idea, but nobody seems to want to listen to him, but he had managed to steal an object from the Fortress of Solitude, and that object is going to bring Kong and Godzilla onto the main DC playing field. Now, I don't know why this is a 6-issue miniseries. That's what it's advertised as, and I think that's ludicrous. Unless they're going to get some of the powerhouses out of the DCU, Firestorm, Superman, and Captain Atom could all easily take down a giant monkey and a giant reptile. Even with the atomic breath from Godzilla, all 3 of them could easily wipe the floor with these monsters. But that's not even my issue with this. I'm willing to suspend disbelief that maybe Godzilla can somehow beat up Superman, and it's an interesting premise, and there's also, of course, the Legion of Doom to deal with, but this issue was a lot of not giant monsters running around breaking stuff. It was a lot of babbling about Clark and Lois getting possibly engaged. There was way too much time devoted to that, which is also one of my complaints with the Godzilla movie franchise, is there's way too many humans in it and not enough giant monster fights. And unfortunately, this suffered from that. And at a staggering $5, you do get a lot of pages in here, but there's a lot of fluff in here. This is incredibly decompressed storytelling that did not rely enough on the giant monsters and relied way too much on talking about somebody's relationship. It was like Hallmark wrote a monster movie. There's monsters there, they're in it, sort of, for a few pages, but it's mostly about their feelings and their relationships. Sure, they fight Titano for like a page. Oh, sure, they're at the Fortress of Solitude for a few pages, but don't worry, Lois is sitting at her computer for a couple pages too, and there's a lot of standing around in the woods, and then there's a lot of sitting around, sometimes at the top of the Daily Planet, sometimes at the Watchtower. I was kind of bored with this, and I should not be bored with a giant monster book. At most, this should have been 2 issues and had it mostly fighting and combat. That's what I want to see with Godzilla and King Kong. A lot of monster fights, fighting other monsters, fighting giant mechs, whatever. Just giant monster fights. Instead, this was a bunch of navel-gazing with the veneer of monsters in it. I saw more action of Titano than I did with Godzilla. Godzilla's barely in the book. At least Kong sorta has a brief fight that's like 2 panels themselves long. This was kind of a ripoff at $5. There was just way too much wasted space. The art's not bad. The coloring's pretty good. There is some lighting issues where it's a little too soft tones and not really adding anything to it. There were just these soft sunset tones that weren't needed on Skull Island and the whole scene with Lois and Clark, which was way too long. But the monsters looked pretty good. It was just too much padding, not enough monster fights. So unless that picks up, this miniseries is not going to be something I'm paying for. So I'm not going to recommend this unless you can get it out of a dollar bin, or you're going to get it really cheap in trade, because there's just too much babbling and not enough giant monsters to satisfy any monster fan. This is bad as a comic book. It's really bad as a monster comic book. So massive letdown on this book for me, and I'm not going to recommend it. That's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods, and as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we are looking at Justice League vs. Godzilla vs. Kong, Issue 2. This is a mini-series from DC Comics in 2023, written by Brian Buccoletto, art by Christian Deuce, colors by Luis Guerrero, letters by Richard Starkings, and comic crafts Jimmy Bentoncourt. DC editor was Ben Abernathy, Legendary Comics editor was Robert Napton. I have the variant cover by David Nakayama, and I like that cover. It's pretty dynamic. I feel a little annoyed that I had to pay an extra $1 because this was the last copy available and it was the cardstock one. It's a cool cover, but it's not worth an extra $1. And I'm kind of sick of variant covers like I have been for 20 years. It's just sort of annoying when you just want to read the comic and you end up having to pay an extra $1 because everybody else is reading the same book and you get stuck with the overpriced variant. So finally we're done hearing about Superman possibly proposing to Lois and we get into some real action. So Superman is fighting Godzilla, kind of. It's sort of him trying to distract Godzilla and Godzilla getting annoyed and swatting him away. But there's also some other problems. There's a giant Cthulhian-looking spider hanging out in Central City, a giant mastodon in Themyscira, and of course you have to have a giant bat monster in Gotham City. Why mix it up, right? Stick with the bat theme. And a lot of this issue is devoted to what's going on with the bat creature, and I'm sure the next issue will feature one of the others. But it also does have Superman fighting Godzilla a little bit and trying to figure out what to do. The League is mobilizing everyone, although we really don't see most of the heavy hitters. We don't see Captain Atom, we don't see Firestorm, or half a dozen other really hardcore characters. Now, we learned that Toyman used the Dreamstone to make all this happen, and of course, we didn't get enough of the Dreamstone with the 47 comics they did for Night Terrors, so they gotta use the same MacGuffin again immediately afterward, because why not? Laziness. So the Bat Monster's pretty creepy looking, looks pretty cool, and the Bat family is trying to stop it. Jason, of course, doesn't listen to anybody and takes a shot and causes all sorts of chaos, probably gets a few people killed, but Black Canary shows up to help out, and so does Cyborg. Of course, we have to have Batgirl hitting Red Hood because girl power or something, kind of pointless scene, but they do fight the Bat Monster, who has some sort of psionic ability. I'm curious to know what special ability the Mastodon is going to have, but the Mastodon and the Spider Cthulhian creature look really cool as well. Captain Marvel tries something, it doesn't really work out, and we are left with a cliffhanger ending that looks like Superman may be in some serious trouble here. Overall, I was actually really happy with this book. The pacing was good, the story was pretty good, and finally there's some action. You could pretty much just skip the first issue and jump in here and you would be just fine. It does a pretty good job bringing you up to date on what's going on, so you didn't really miss a lot. Although I still think Godzilla looks like a photograph that was touched up to just sort of get wedged in here a little more often than not. So King Kong really isn't in this issue, but the other monsters do look pretty interesting. They did spend a lot of time in Gotham on this one, and that makes me happy because we got to see giant monsters fighting superheroes, and that's really what I bought the book for the first time. So don't bother with the first issue, just jump in here. There's a lot more interesting stuff going on here. There is a mysterious island, so it looks like Skull Island has appeared on the DC universe, and even the Legion of Doom really isn't sure what's going on at this this point. They all got kind of scattered to the wind by Toyman, and they're probably gonna have to wish everyone away. So pretty solid story in this issue. Like I said, it's way better than the last issue, and the action is picking up. This is more along the lines of what I want to see, so I will pick up issue 3, and I'm excited to read that. Don't pay the extra $1 for the fancy cover. That's never worth it. It's just a scam to get you to give them an extra $1, because why do you deserve good paper, I guess? But I like the art through the book, and the story is solid. So if you get a chance to check this out, I'm going to recommend it, but I'm not recommending issue 1. So that's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we are looking at Justice League vs. Godzilla vs. Kong issue 3. This is a 2023 miniseries from DC Comics in association with Legendary Comics. This was written by Brian Buccellato, art by Christian Deuce, colors by Luis Guerrero, Richard Starkings and Comic Craft's Jimmy Bentecourt on letters. Ben Abernathy was the DC Comics editor, and the Legendary Comics editor was Robert Napton. The cover I have is by Drew Johnson and Romulo Fajardo Jr. It's an okay cover. We do finally get to see King Kong in here. It's been a while. He was kind of in issue 1 for a minute, but not for very long. So he actually is kind of involved in this one, but that's not the crux of the story. A lot of the story is focusing on what the Justice League is doing. Flash is trying to stop the Cthulhu spider from destroying Iron Heights, while at the same time a lot of his rogues gallery has been let loose, and he's got to fight them and the giant spider. Thankfully, Hal comes along to help out, and Supergirl is there as well, but Supergirl also has to assist with Godzilla. Now Superman is down for the count, and Atom Smasher might be as well, and we're not sure if either of them are dead, but they're both definitely injured. Thankfully, Captain Marvel and Supergirl are able to knock Godzilla down and evacuate Superman, which is primarily Hawkgirl's job. Donna and Wonder Woman have to deal with the giant mastodon thingy that's about to rampage across Themyscira, but something begins calling these monsters away, some sort of beacon. Green Arrow, for his part, is having some problems of his own because he's on Skull Island. Supergirl shows up there too and makes King Kong angry for no reason. He reaches out to kind of grab her, but it doesn't look like it's an aggressive thing. She just smacks him anyway. The Bat Team, along with Cyborg and Black Canary, have managed to down that giant bat thing, and Batman is not convinced of what's happened to Superman, as reported by Captain Marvel, and we get to see Luthor's up to some shenanigans as usual. It looks like the Legion of Doom is definitely going to have some kind of nefarious plot going on here, and everybody's looking for Toyman. Overall, this was a pretty good installment in the miniseries. It's definitely middle story, but there is a lot of giant monster action, as well as some superhero action, but things aren't looking real good for the heroes. Some of their big guns are down, and a lot of others aren't even mentioned. Where's Captain Atom? Where's Firestorm? Where's Martian Manhunter? Where's the rest of the Marvel family? There's a lot of people that are unaccounted for. For that matter, where are several of Superman's big allies? Where's Atomic Skull? Some of his villains could be helpful here too. So there's a lot of questions I have about where some of the characters are, but if you're just sticking with the core league, where's the rest of Green Lantern Corps, by the way? It's not a bad story. I thought it was pretty fun. It was cool to see Atom Smasher trying to fight Godzilla. Unfortunately, he got owned pretty hard, and hopefully he's not dead, because they could probably use his help again later. But overall, I thought it was pretty interesting, and the way they brought down Superman so that he's not as much of a MacGuffin is pretty good too. Although I think that Firestorm would be able to probably transmute a lot of Godzilla's breath rays, so we'll see if they work that angle or not. It's a definite step up from issue 1. Just skip issue 1 and go into issue 2. Issue 2 and 3 are both pretty solid. This was a pretty fun read, and I'm intrigued to see where it goes at this point, now that they've finally got Kong in the game. But we'll have to wait and see. Is it worth $5? Not really. I would wait and get the trade paperback. I think you'll get a lot more enjoyment out of it for less money that way. But it's a pretty fun story so far. I want to see more giant monsters rampaging though. So that's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we are looking at Justice League vs. Godzilla vs. Kong issue 4. This is a miniseries from DC Comics that started in 2023. It was written by Brian Buccellato, Christian Duce, and Tom Derenick were the artists, Luis Guerrero on colors, Richard Starkings and Comic Craft's Jimmy Bentecourt did the letters. DC Comics editor was Ben Abernathy, Legendary Comics editor was Robert Napton. I have the cover by Drew Johnson and Romulo Fajardo Jr. That's actually a cool cover, and it does relate to what's going on in the book. So Batman's not convinced that Superman's dead, but he definitely looks very dead. And Kara and Green Arrow have a visit with Kong, who just sort of makes noises and grunts a lot. Unfortunately, Kara gets called away, and that leaves Green Arrow to deal with the League of Assassins who have made it to Skull Island. Why? I don't know, but they're there, and they're not happy. Kong isn't either. He kind of helps Green Arrow out. Lois is given the bad news, and she gets to see Clark in his roughed up shape. She also figures out that Toyman's up to no good, and she makes a mysterious phone call to a potential ally for assistance. Meanwhile, the Legion of Doom is formulating some sort of sinister plot, and everybody's looking for Toyman. Meanwhile, Godzilla and one of the other monsters from the Monsterverse are attacking Atlantis. Unfortunately, that means the dome that protects Atlantis is at risk, especially against Godzilla's atomic breath. And Aquaman does a really cool maneuver to get some help. And we get a hint that there's another player on the scene and something else is about to go down. Overall, this issue is actually pretty good. It's mostly the Justice League trying to play catch up and hold off the monsters, and they're not doing a particularly great job. They are on the back foot the entire time, which is probably a little bit more realistic. And it was kind of cool to see how the Legion of Doom is making other machinations behind the scenes. So overall, I thought it was a pretty solid book. Probably the best one so far in the series. Is it worth $5? Not really. There was definitely some padding in here. They're trying to make it a little too cinematic, and the whole sequence with Lois going to see Superman was pretty heavily padded. But this issue is by far the best one so far in the series, just because there's way more action. We actually get to see King Kong do something, and it had a lot of really fun elements. The art's pretty solid. It definitely looks like there's some corner cutting on backgrounds, like manipulated photos, that sort of thing, but overall I didn't have a problem with anything in the book. The art is pretty solid, and the characterization of the heroes was pretty good, so a pretty fun issue. I was really impressed overall with it. So we're going to look at issue 5 next and see how that one goes, but so far this is the best issue in the series. Like I said before, just skip issue 1, you'll be fine, and jump in with issue 2, because that's where everything really starts, and it just kind of builds from there. But that's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods, and as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we are looking at Justice League vs. Godzilla vs. Kong, issue 5. This is a miniseries from DC Comics written by Brian Buccellato, art by Christian Duce and Tom Derenick, colors by Luis Guerrero, letters by Richard Starkings and Comic Craft's Jimmy Bentecourt. DC Comics editor was Ben Abernathy, Legendary Comics editor was Robert Napton. The cover I have is by Drew Johnson and Romulo Fajardo Jr., and that is an insanely boring cover. It's part of a larger image, granted, but it should be more exciting other than seeing the reflection of Godzilla on the Hall of Justice. Instead, you've got Superman looking up like Godzilla just cut a fart. Everybody else just sort of staring off into space with disinterest. Why does Yara's sword look like a bayonet? And Aquaman's face looks really weird. Overall, not an impressive cover, especially if they want $5 for this. The interior art is significantly better. Kara confirms that Superman is still alive, but not for long. Meanwhile, underwater, Godzilla is fighting one of the other large monsters that was brought over from the parallel universe, and Aquaman has unleashed the Kraken, which is sort of this Cthulhian looking creature, and they fight for a while. Batman is trying to organize the rest of the league to try and get things moving so they can actually stop these creatures and send them back, but it's not going real well. Lois's contact did provide them with a lot of information that does help quite a bit, but it's not really panning out quite yet. Supergirl, unfortunately, goes back to Monster Island and runs into an old adversary who's going to play a significantly bad role in this affair, and Captain Marvel decides to try and take on the Legion of Doom by himself, and that's not going to really work out in anyone's favor either. We're left with a cliffhanger ending where Godzilla may be captured, but probably won't be for long, and Lex Luthor's plan is coming to fruition, but there's still another player who's about to enter the stage as well, and that could really shake things up. So we'll see how it plays out. Overall, this is a very solid issue. It's very middle story, so you're really not going to have a good grasp of what's going on, but you don't have to go back to issue 1 because issue 1 was incredibly pointless. You could just start with issue 2 and be a lot happier with your life. But I would definitely say this is probably not going to bring you up to speed on what's going on. There's too many pieces moving in this one. You're not going to really understand what Green Arrow is doing and why unless you read the previous issue. So I would say wait to read this one until you've got more of the mini-series, or just buy it in trade. That's probably going to be the best way to enjoy this series, especially because issue 1 was such a failure. And with the cover being kind of garbage, it's really not inspiring anyone to drop $5. So I would say wait and get the trade paperback at this point, because while the cliffhanger was pretty good, so far there are too many downsides to getting the $5 issues individually, and you'll probably be able to get the trade paperback cheaper than you would the individual issues. But I will recommend it. I think it's a pretty interesting miniseries despite the really, really rough start. And this issue was a really fun read. The art's solid, the story was actually pretty good, and a lot is happening, so there's quite a bit of action in here, and that made me very happy. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods, and as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Justice League vs. Godzilla vs. Kong issue 6. This is a mini-series from DC Comics in association with Legendary, written by Brian Buccellato, art by Christian Deuce and Tom Derenick, colors by Luis Guerrero, letters by Richard Starkings and Comic Craft's Tyler Smith. DC Comics editors were Ben Abernathy and Michael McAllister, while Legendary Comics editor was Robert Napton. Had the cover by Drew Johnson and Romulo Fajardo Jr. It's an okay cover, but it's one of those interlocking ones, so it doesn't make any sense without the other ones and looks very haphazard. The leading lines don't really work out because Kong's arm is throwing everything off. I end up looking at either Jon Stewart's elbow or King Kong's chest, and there's not enough size for the heroes to actually make a difference except for Jon Stewart, so they're all just sort of afterthoughts that look like color forms stuck on a random image of King Kong. So I kind of hate the cover. We get caught up a little bit on what the monsters are doing. Clark goes missing, and Mechagodzilla is revealed to the world. It looks like everything is going to happen at Centennial Park in Metropolis as the other monsters congregate there against Luthor's Mechagodzilla. And Batman brought his own toy because he's got teamwork on his side with the help of Flash, Cyborg, and various other heroes. There's also a Green Lantern robot, which was kind of cool. And finally, the characters are smartening up a little bit. There's also a Batwing that transforms for some stupid reason. And Gorilla Grodd is controlling Kong and Supergirl. So while everybody's beating the crap out of each other and getting really nowhere, one of the heroes dies, apparently. And with one of the Green Lanterns down, things are looking a bit grim. But things aren't quite over yet, because another player is entering the game of monsters, and it does not look good. And Godzilla is still chained at the bottom of the ocean, where he is going to apparently have a deep, meaningful conversation with somebody, possibly to try and win him over to their side, and we'll see how it all plays out next issue. This issue is almost entire setup, but there's some really cool dialogue and story plots that finally come together. So while it is largely a setup issue, there is some cool stuff that happens that I thought was pretty fun. The Batwing transforming like a cheap GoBot was really lazy and kind of dumb. But I get why they did it. It's some fan service to people that like transforming airplanes or something, I guess. I thought that was the weakest part. The idea of a Green Lantern style Voltron was pretty fun, and Batman having a mech that he built with a bunch of other Justice Leaguers was just kind of fun. So there was some really cool stuff here that hopefully gets sorted out in the last issue, but I am looking forward to actually reading that. Again, this series has really picked up steam over the course of these 6 issues. Issue 1 was such a massive disappointment for me. I regret that I ever bought that issue. I wish I had just come in on issue 2, but it has gotten better slowly as the series has progressed. So I am pretty happy with it overall, and I will recommend it. I think the $5 cover price for this issue is probably a bit high, and I would absolutely say if you're going to read this, get it in trade paperback. You could probably find it cheaper than the cover price of the individual issues combined. That would be the ideal way to read this, and you'll probably get a more effective storyline that way. And you could just skip past issue 1 without any regret whatsoever. So get it in trade unless you can find these issues really cheap in a bargain bin, because the cover prices are way too high. But that's going to do it for this episode as always. Thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we are looking at Justice League vs. Godzilla vs. Kong, issue 7. This is the final issue of the miniseries from DC Comics and Legendary Comics, written by Brian Buccellato, with art by Christian Deuce and Tom Derenick, colors by Luis Guerrero. Richard Starkings and Comic Craft's Tyler Smith did the letters. Ben Abernathy and Michael McAllister did the DC Comics editing, and Legendary Comics editor was Robert Napton. I have the main cover by Drew Johnson and Romulo Fajardo Jr. When you first glance at it, it's an okay cover, but Lex Luthor looks kind of weird, and the photoshopping isn't quite right because his foot isn't standing properly on the P in Daily Planet. It just looks like some kid put that there with a color form set. And Superman's arm looks like it was twisted around, but the Mechagodzilla looks okay, I guess. So I'm not a fan of the cover. The longer you look at it, the more it just doesn't work, especially with Lex Luthor. It just looks like he was pasted in there unnecessarily. So we find out what happened with Superman, and it's a bit of a MacGuffin. I get where they're going with it, but it just seemed a little convenient. Then we've got a big knockdown drag out. One of the Green Lanterns does not make it, and his ring goes to a very unexpected character in the book. Thankfully, with Superman back in action and Godzilla finally showing up, things start to move along pretty well. So there's quite a bit of action in this book, and it does get wrapped up pretty well. It seemed a little bit rushed, but overall it's not a bad issue. The story overall is pretty good. I think the first issue is the weakest, and this issue is probably the second weakest. There was a lot of build-up, and it just felt like the pacing was a little off in this one, but overall I enjoyed the story. I would say if you're gonna read this, don't pay anywhere near the $5 cover price for these issues. Try and get them for $2 to $3, or get the trade paperback for about 40% off. Then I would say it's a good addition, but I wouldn't pay anywhere near full price. It just was a little bit of a letdown in the beginning and in the end. That first issue was completely worthless as far as I was concerned, with like 1 or 2 pages that were really any good. And this issue just seems like it was a bit rushed, like they really didn't know how to wrap up what they were doing, and they didn't really go into long-term ramifications or anything like that. They didn't really analyze how this would actually all play out. But it was interesting that there were stakes involved in the miniseries and that things did happen that would affect the long-term well-being of the DC universe. Still, it just seemed a bit rushed at the end. I would add this to my trade paperback collection, but I probably won't keep the single issues. It was worth reading once. Probably not something I would revisit very often, but if you could find it cheap enough, then I would say pick up the trade and read it that way. That's probably going to be the better way to do it, but get it at a deep discount. That's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe so you didn't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.